Essex Soldier here, and I am back to talk about Star Wars Andor Season 1, Episodes 1, 2 and 3, and my thoughts on these episodes. Um, they were boring. I think the editing staff should have edited out so much of these episodes. It kind of does explain why Disney dropped all 3 episodes and not just one. Because if they just dropped one, this would have been the most boring start to a series I think we've ever seen from a Disney show. But I don't think Andor's terrible. I don't think Andor's woke. But I do think these episodes, there should have been a lot more work done. And it is definitely not a strong start for this new series. Andor's a good character. He was fine in Rogue One. I think Rogue One is the best Disney Star Wars movie out of all the crap they've been giving us. But the show so far, it's not impressed me. I was looking forward to this show because of the last trailer. I think the biggest problem with this show is its pacing, and again, editing should have been a must in this episode. There's parts of these episodes that just should not have been in the episode. I think characters should have been brought in earlier. And yes, I do think there is a little bit of a woke message in the background. But for me, the problem I see going forward is Cassian going to be the focus of the show? Is Andor going to be the main character, or are we going to get a bait and switch like we have had twice now from Star Wars shows? Now, I don't think well, the problem for me is I can't trust Lucasfilm. I can't trust Disney. This show has potential if they go in the right direction, but unfortunately we have too many signs from previous seasons and in these episodes that this show may be turning into a stupid kind of find somebody mission. I don't want it to happen. This show needs to be about the rebellion. This show needs to be about, the politics of the galaxy. This can't just be Andor looking for something. Because if it is, and it turns out this is all we're going to be getting for most of the series, this show hasn't got a big enough future, or at least it will be a failure. And I do think Andor has that potential. But for me, these 3 episodes, slow, boring, need a lot of editing, and yeah, it's not a strong start for this show. And I think I'm going to give it a score out of 10 of 4. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. I think it's okay in certain parts, but again, it needs a lot of work done on it, and all 3 of these episodes could have just been one whole episode if they just cut down on some of the crap. So let's go into spoilers now. If you don't want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So the episode starts off with Andor on some random planet, heading off to a brothel to find somebody. When he gets there, he talks to one of the girls there and tells her he's looking for his sister. The girl tells him she doesn't know anything about his sister, and nobody leaves their real name in this place of business. So Andor leaves, but then gets chased down by 2 corporation security people who try to shake him down for money. So Andor manages to convince one of the security guards to come closer to get the money out of his pockets. When he does, Andor headbutts the guy, knocks him out. The other guy, he manages to grab his blast off of him, but in the fight, he's managed to kill one of them accidentally. The other security guard asks for his life and begs not to be killed, but Andor sees the situation as he's already killed one, he has to kill the other one, so he does, and Andor runs back to his ship. We then get a scene. The next scene is a scene in the past where we find out Andor used to be a part of a tribe. Now for me, this is kind of a stupid scene, because why are you making Andor a part of a tribe now? He has never... Again, I do kind of think this is racist in my opinion. You're saying that the brown guy is a part of a tribe. It seems just like If it was a white character, you wouldn't have done that. And yes, that might sound a bit SJW, but come on now. Why the fuck is Andor part of some weird tribe? It just seems stupid. So I'm going to get all the tribe scenes out of the way because, again, this is the problem with these episodes. You know, parts that just didn't need to be in the episode and you could have just taken out. And I think all the tribe scenes could have been taken out because they are pretty boring and don't really add anything to the story. So the tribe scenes are Andor's with his tribe. They're talking to each other, getting ready for some sort of hunt. But then a ship crashes. They send out a search party. Well, they send out a scavenging party to go to the ship. The party gets there and they see most of the crew is dead. When the woman who's leading the search group or the scavenge group gets down near the ship, one of the soldiers or one of the people from the ship manages to wake up. He grabs his blaster, shoots her, and then gets hit with a bunch of darts from the tribes who are... Again, this just seems a bit weird to me. A tribe attacking, going to scavenge a ship. It doesn't really make sense to me. But yeah, so they've killed the guy who shot at the lead woman. They take her back to the camp to get help. But Andor stays and sneaks onto the ship, where he starts trying to destroy the ship because he blames these people for killing the woman, or at least hurting the woman who led the tribe or led the scavenger party. Whilst he's destroying it, two scavengers come on the ship to try to steal components for them to sell, but they bump into Andor. Andor threatens them and says leave them alone. But the woman knows they can't do that because the tribe will be seen as attacking Imperial equipment and they would be seen as enemies of the Empire. So she stuns him and takes him away to get him to safety, and that's the end of the tribal scenes. The next scene from Andor is him heading back onto his planet, where we meet his weird robot thing, because that's now a trope in Star Wars. There has to be a robot in every fucking story. Don't know why. They just continuously do this stupid shit. So the robot goes to see Andor. Andor gives him a message to give back to his mother figure, or his what's it called? Guardian, the woman that helped him off that, stunned him on that ship. Tells the robot to go back to make sure that she's safe and gives him a message of, keep her safe and all that stuff. So Andor then runs out, tries to get an alibi for himself. So he goes to the strip yard to meet a friend of his and asks his friend to give him an alibi of, I was with you the whole day, I wasn't with anybody else, we had a fight, that's why I have scars on my face, but I was with you the whole day. And his friend agrees to give him the alibi. Next scene is Andor. Next scene is we meet the corporation security people, and this is where we meet Lieutenant Khan. Now, Lieutenant Khan is the officer in charge of the murder of the two security guards that Andor killed. He goes to his commanding officer and tells him about the attack, but the commanding officer doesn't really give a shit about the attack because he's more interested in making sure he keeps his crime stats low for the Empire, because he's going to a meeting with them soon. Tells him to say that this was an accident or that these two died saving somebody, but make sure it doesn't seem too heroic, because the officer in charge knows that these two were obviously doing something illegal. They shouldn't have been in the brothel they were at, and they shouldn't have been trying to rob people, because I think he pretty much knew what they were doing. It was a shakedown that went wrong, and this guy doesn't really give a shit. It's like, two bad eggs got killed, it's not really our problem anymore, who gives a shit? I need to worry about keeping our crime stats low and making sure the Empire feels happy. But Lieutenant Khan can't really let this go, because these are two of his men that he's lost, and he needs to find out who's killed them. But the commanding officer leaves him in charge whilst he goes to this meeting with the Empire, and whilst he's gone, he's left Khan in charge. So Khan then decides to investigate this on his own, well, he goes over the boss's head and just says, I'll just do this on my own. He starts looking into the case a lot more, finds out, goes to the, what's that called? Radar room. He talks to one of the computer guys there. They look through the security records, and Khan finds one ship that deviated off its course and is not on their books. So he's figured out this is the ship that must have had the murder on it. So he tells the computer operator to check through the files and to find out where that ship's course was. So he leaves that with the computer operator, who doesn't look happy at all about it. The next scene is Cassian meeting his friend Bix, who is in charge of a chop shop, and he goes there to tell her he has a bunch of important Imperial crystals and Imperial codes that he wants to sell to her important buyer. She gets annoyed at him for not selling it to her because she should have first dibs, but Cassian tells her he doesn't want to sell this for pennies. He wants to sell this to a big buyer because he needs to get off the planet as soon as possible. She asks him, is he in trouble? But Cassian just says, you don't want to know. Whilst then he leaves it with her because she agrees to call up her buyer. And then he leaves, and the Scottish guy, who's obviously going out with the bird, obviously going out with Bex, kind of tries to warn off Andor and tells him, don't get her in trouble. She doesn't need to be her life to be destroyed by you. And Cassian says, don't worry, I'm not here to hurt her, I just want to help. And he leaves. Next scene is just a tribal scene. I've already gone through that. And the next scene is just Bex heading off to call her client to tell him to get to the planet because Andor's got stuff for him. Now, the problem, this is where I'm going to stop there. The problem with this episode is so much of this episode could have been cut out. The tribal scenes, these small ass stories that I don't really give a shit about. Yes, I know they're trying to tell a, big story here, but you need to cut down on like these boring scenes. Why are we seeing Andor running all over the place? Again, that's just not entertaining to watch for the first episode. You should be what we should be doing is seeing what the rebellion are doing. We should be seeing what the politics are. You don't need to stay with Andor nearly the entire episode if all he's going to do is just run around and just do like random things. It just seems boring. But anyway, so Bex calls up her client. He agrees to come. Next scene is corporation security, where Khan tells the security computer team to send out an APB out for a dark featured man who is a Canary, and that they are offering a reward for his capture. And he says, flood the airways with it. I want bounty hunters. He wants everything on it. They want to have Andor found. And they send out their APB, and then the episode goes to Andor fixing the ship he used, changing the ID code so it's not picked up as the one he used from yesterday. He tries to ask the person in charge of these ships if he can use his ship again. He says no because he knows Andor's up to no good and he doesn't want to get involved in it, and he warns Andor not to come back or he'll deal with him himself. So Andor now has a problem. He doesn't have a ship to escape on, so he's got to find some way to get off the planet. That's how episode 1 ends. Episode 2, which I think is the worst out of the 3 because it is pretty fucking boring. The episode starts off with us with the tribe again, but again, I've gone through the tribe stuff, so we're going to start off with... The episode starts off with the bells chiming or something. It has a guy just hitting some metal, waking everybody up, telling them, I think it's either morning or afternoon. We then go to the scene where Bex is talking to a Scottish fella, and then the Scottish fella sees the APB out on a dark featured man who's Corarian or something. And he realises this is Andor, and this makes him scared that he's gotten his girlfriend into something dangerous. Next scene is Andor with his guardian, or whatever the woman is to him. She tries to see if he's okay. Andor says he's fine, he's just there to get a wash, decided to eat. But she then shows him the message sent by corporation security that are looking for a Canary male with dark features. She then realizes this is him, and she then tells him, who have you told that you are Canary? Because I've told nobody. Andor says he's only told a few people, but people he can trust. But she says that's not enough. And then Andor starts to panic and realize he needs to get off the planet faster than he thought. So Andor runs off to talk to Bex. Bex tells him that the buyer is ready to come and get the merchandise. Andor agrees to it and tells him to meet in a secret location. At the same time, the Scottish bloke sees them both together and is pretty pissed off and drunk. And whilst he's drunk, he runs off to a computer to tell corporation security that the person they're looking for is Andor, and this is where you can find him. So he pretty much snitched on Andor and has pretty much told corporation where he is. So corporation security, the next scene is you see Lieutenant Khan finally get a face of Andor. It's a young face, but it's pretty much something to go off on. And the lieutenant decides to set up a capture team and chooses a sergeant. Then we get introduced to Sergeant Carstons, I think. Carstons, or whatever the hell he's called. And this sergeant is pretty much a disciplined, brute soldier who knows his job and tells the lieutenant that he thinks the Empire needs to strike now, or at least as a security strike now, because corporation security is the first line of defense for the Empire. Now you can see this guy is dedicated, you can see he's professional, and he doesn't really want to just take a small team, so he tells the lieutenant that they're going to need a full man team, which is 14 men, and he'll get them ready straight away. And the lieutenant tells him yes, and so he goes off to do that. And then the next scene is, it's a tribal scene, but I've gone through that as I've said. But I will say this, we do see a scene where we see what's happening to the Canary planet, which is the Empire strip mining it for its materials, and you can kind of see a little bit of a woke message in there, but again, it is what the Empire does. But again, I would have liked to have seen them use a little bit more different equipment than the exact same equipment they use on Earth. Again, this is Star Wars, not Planet Earth. I would have liked to have seen, I don't know, walkers, maybe men using like special equipment, not just seeing a crane that pretty much looked like a fucking crane from Earth. So that's a down for me. But the next scene is we finally get introduced to Leffor, or Leffen, or whatever he's called, and he's the buyer of the merchandise. He comes on his ship to the planet. He then lands outside the city. He grabs a bus to the meeting to see Andor, and on the bus he has a chat with some random bloke about the old days. Again, a scene you didn't need to have in this episode, a scene you probably didn't need to actually waste time with. Again, editing should have been the focus of this show. They needed to edit out all the waste of time scenes, because there are too many of them. So the next scene is Andor in his hideout with his robot, telling him that he's going to give him a communication device because he can't just tell him where his money is. And this is the money that's going to go to that guardian woman of his to make sure that she's safe and secure. When he's ready to leave, he'll send the robot, he'll tell the robot where the money is, and so the robot can tell the guardian where it is, and she'll be safe after that. Next scene is Andor talking to one of the dock workers to arrange a transport for him to get off the planet. He tells the transport operator how much for no questions, how much for no, security checks for the person or the thing he wants transported off the planet. Guy says it's 900 credits, but Andor tells him to bring it down to 700. They agree, and he sets up a getaway plan for him to get off the planet. And then Andor heads off to his meeting with Leffor. The next scene is with us with Corporation security on their transport, where the sergeant gives them a operations meeting, a briefing on their operation, which is to capture Andor. They'll split up into 3 squads, and they will try to deal with the local population, because local population will be threatening in some cases, and it's a pretty good sergeant speech. The sergeant then tells Lieutenant Khan to give a speech himself, but it's a pretty terrible speech, and you can see on all the men's faces, yeah, he's not really fit to be in command at this point. But he is in command, and again, I remember from my army days, you usually get that officer who probably shouldn't have been there. So, and I think Khan is pretty much one of those officers, unfortunately. So they get ready to depart. Well, they get ready to land on the planet, and then the episode ends there. Now we're on to episode 3. I have cut a lot out of my review because there was a lot of other scenes I could have talked about, but again, I'm just editing it down, otherwise we'd be here for hours. And again, this is what the editing staff should have done. So we're on episode 3, and the episode 3 starts off with, again, another scene with the tribe. And as I've said, I've already gone through the tribe scenes, so we're going to go on to the next scene, which is Levar, or Lefor, whatever the fuck he's called, landing on the bus. He meets up with Bex, tells him where to meet Andor. He goes off to meet Andor. They both size each other up. Andor tells him what he's got to offer him, which is security crystals and security cards, Imperial security cards for him, and he wants I think 10,000 credits, I think is what he said. Lefor wants to make sure he's not an Imperial agent. He asks him questions about it, but then he tells him what he's really here for, which is he's here to find Andor. He wants Andor to join him in a fight against the Empire. And then he asks him how did he get through Imperial security, and then you get this kind of weird speech from Andor about the Empire don't think of me as a threat, they see me as nothing as dirt, so they'd never think that I'm going to outsmart them or steal from them. And so you could kind of say it's a woke message, but I kind of just see it as just something Andor would say at that point, because he was like that in Rogue One. And so Lefor offers him a job, tries to get him to join the rebellion, and says he'll pay for the crystals and all the other things that he's got, but he wants to join the the rebellion. Resistance, how dare I? Rebellion. But Andor's not sure about that. That's not what he was here for. He just wants to sell his merchandise and to get off the planet. Next scene is Corporation security landing on the planet, splitting up to 3 groups. They then manage to find Andor's mother person. They interrogate her, but she won't talk. But when Andor tries to send a message to the robot, they pretty much are there to hear it, and then they start to scan for the communication device he's using, and they do find out where he is. They send a security team to deal with him, and when they get there, Andor and Lefor start a shootout with the Corporation. In the fight, Andor loses his merchandise, the security crystals and passwords that he was selling. They had to abandon them. They run off to try to get to the speeders so they can get to Lefor's ship. When they get to the the speeders, Andor captures Lieutenant Khan, who was ready for an ambush for him, but they take him prisoner. And this is where you see Lefor is not a peaceful person. He says that he needs to kill Khan, but Andor doesn't want to do that, so they tie him up and they grab a speeder. They fill the speeder with explosives, send it out. The corporations go after them on the speeder, but it turns out they're not in the speeder. The speeder blows up and kills some of the corporation soldiers. Andor and Lefor grab a bike, jump on it, and race to Lefor's ship. And I'm rushing through this now because, again, this is what they should have been doing. They didn't need to keep us on these scenes for ages. They needed to just get us to the end point. And that's what they should have done. There's all these slow scenes and just talking for talking's sake at some points. Again, you've got to keep my attention, Andor writers. You've got to keep it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be veering off. So I'm just doing what they should have done. Andor gets on the bike. They get to Lethal ship, and they take off and get away. In the streets, though, Bex was captured by the corporation. The Scottish guy tries to free her, but he gets killed in the attempt. And the corporation are then dealing with the loss of their men and being shown, and the lieutenant being kind of, useless, and seeing that he's caused the death of his men, and he's pretty much heartbroken by it. And then this episode ends with Andor remembering lifting off from his planet with his mum character, and that's how the episode ends. For me, yes, I've rushed through a lot of these these episodes, but for me, it shouldn't have just been 3 episodes. It should have just been one big episode. There was too much time wasted on certain characters, too much time wasted on certain scenes. The editing staff needed to be more in control of these episodes, and I think the writers are doing too much world explaining at this point. So for me, it's a 4 out of 10. Massive improvements are needed. I hope we're going to get better episodes in the future, but this is Lucasfilm. I do doubt it, but not a strong start for Andor, and I think the series might have a problem going forward with ratings. So that's my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. Entertainment Soldier. Bye.